We have an action-packed day ahead of us. Please mark your attendance. And if you have any opens, go ahead and add those in. We're going to start off with a conversation, and then we're going to ideally finish up reviewing our first draft of the plan. And then I'm going to look for some volunteers. We'll give it till 2 after the hour and we'll get rolling.
I just wanted to introduce myself. You've seen me in previous calls. I'm new. I'm a new person here at Sneak, and I'm just kind of like coming in and joining a few OpenSSF calls to get the lay of the land. So, if you're looking for a Sneak contact, I'm an additional contact. Just wanted to say hi.
Excellent. Thank you, Dan. Hopefully you'll find this is the best SIG.
I hope I do, but I also have to give my apologies because I'm gonna have to drop at 1:30 because there's a company, briefing announcement thing that I need to go to. But
no worries at all. Pretty informal here. Welcome everybody to the August 17th edition of the Education SIG. Do I have any volunteers to assist in scribing notes? Mr. Russo and Mr. Wheeler. Oh, the double David.
All yes, right. Although I don't have the link right in front of me.
Oh, if you looked at the Zoom chat, it's in there about 86 times.
Oh man, I've only got it once. I got gypped. All right.
Zoom feature. Awesome, thank you. So do we have anyone with any opens we wanted to talk about today? Right. If not, let us turn our attention to the Plan 2.0. We were all the way down in reviewing to section 5.3. And I think if we try hard, we can get the review done this morning or this afternoon or evening, depending on where you are. And then we can get into some other exciting things. So looks like this is something we added completely from the original plan. And it looks like, I believe Emily gave us a much more thorough description. So 5.3 now reads, identify areas where developers are copying or extracting insecure code snippets and work to correct the most widely applied vulnerable snippets in order to address common problems and challenges, such as those found on Stack Overflow. Provide justification and reasoning on the change to support educating adopters of these snippets and ensure that the proposed text is properly licensed as open source. Examples are MIT, not just Creative Commons, because those don't address patents, and build on existing research in this area. So is the team happy with A, the addition, and then B, the rewording?
Yeah, I think that's good.
Awesome, awesome.
I don't know how successful we'll be at our asking Stack Overflow to relicense the world, but we can at least encourage licenses for particular snippets.
We certainly will do our best. Any additional comments before we move on to 5.4? We adjusted 5.4. The new wording would be implement a system to track over time the number of people who earn various certifications and the number of open source projects who have a maintainer who has earned that certification. And it looks like we just trimmed out some additional words there. Any questions or comments about that change? All right. 5.4.1 was originally an example of places we would like to track. And it looks like we've adjusted it to be more of a sentence now. We're going to add a badge certificate for maintainers who have security training, partner with other organizations beyond GitHub, GitLab, Indeed, and LinkedIn to make that information more available. So we took that chunk out of the 5.4 and it made it its own standalone statement.
Hold up here.
Yes.
GitHub, GitLab, Indeed, LinkedIn. I mean, I certainly would love to see partners with lots of organizations, not just those 4. But is there anywhere where we're saying we're going to try to interact with those 4?
Yeah, those are this is the second year part of the plan, and I believe those 4 are specified earlier in the first year part of the plan. Let me make sure I'm not lying to you, though.
And we can change like the word beyond to EG as we've used before to show that they're examples, not necessarily an exhaustive list.
4.6, I believe, covers the first year sync up with LinkedIn and Indeed.
But what about GitHub, GitLab?
They're also in there, GitLab and GitHub and GitLab in 4.6.
How about we just say 4.6? Or as e.g. as noted in, would that be good?
Any comments on that? Judy's reading ahead. In this version, Judy, we have both, mainly one listed as year 1 and year 2. Once we complete some business, and hopefully we'll get to it today, I'm going to unveil the next form of what the plan looks like, where Dave and I took all of these items we've talked about and put them into more of a plan format. And it showcases year 1 and year 2 pretty clearly. Does that answer your question, Judy?
Thanks, Groby. I just put in you guys. But yeah, appreciate that. Thank you. It's just, I'm confused sometimes when I see overlap, but I'm just wondering stage 2.
This form, we're grappling with how the original plan was written, and we've kind of put it into a list. The next version hopefully will make a little more sense to actually show I've collected all the similar ideas and put them underneath the 3 categories we're working towards. So hopefully once we see that, it'll make more sense to folks, where we'll have the first year item, and then this would be the second year item kind of underneath it.
Okay, great. Thank you for all that work.
Awesome. Right. 5.4.2. But that needs to be reworded. But we're looking for some type of feedback loop, looking to be able to track success metrics and following up after getting certifications to talk about employability. Did that increase that learner's employability? So are we okay with the idea? And then we can work on the wording if we still like that idea. Emily. Good morning.
So, good morning. So, if the original intent of 5.4 is to implement the system to track it, what is the intent that 5.4.2's clarification provides? Additionally, does anybody have any reasonable sense of confidence that we'll be able to track certification into employment increases for some of these positions? Like, that seems like a lot of online stalking against individuals that have gotten the certification to find out whether or not they experienced a job change.
I believe the idea was to do some type of survey, but I don't, it definitely isn't described as is right now. I agree. I don't want to be a cyber stalker.
Yeah, I suspect that I'm not sure about the employability. I think the first part's the more important is, enabling a feedback loop through metrics. And then I think the employability was just I'm not so sure that's the important part. I think it's the feedback loop.
One second while we get some typing. Vicky.
So I work a fair bit with LPI, as people know, Linux Professional Institute, and this is all we do at LPI is certifications. And I'll tell you, it is remarkably difficult to both gather the metrics of whether they were able to get some sort of change, but also just, coffee still kicking in this morning, but also just following up about employability things. It all becomes anecdata rather than actual data. So that's something that I think, while it may be interesting, I think this is not going to be necessarily easy, and the information we get will not be actionable. We'll be able to get some blog posts out of it and be able to wave our hands and say, look, we think we made a difference. But I'm not convinced that it's actually going to be useful. I mean, we can try for it.
I think it's important to have some metrics, if for no other reason than you may complain about hey, we did something, but you know what? People do want some evidence that we're doing something. But I think we ought to be specific about what the goals are. I don't think we want, if we can iterate the opportunities, that's great, but I think we want to see whether or not it is successful in the sense of, say, improving security or helping the developers in some way. I think that's what the employability thing was about. Remember, I think we just want metrics, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah, employability is different than seeing whether we improved security.
Fair. Agreed.
And there's certainly a lot of value in being able to show that we're making a difference, because otherwise, why bother, frankly? So I'm just not sure that is the right metric. Perhaps there's a way for us to rephrase this so we can be a little more vague about what the metric is until we can determine what that is and put that as a TBD.
And that's an awesome segue, Vicky. What we're doing today is we're agreeing with the general direction. Does the team like this idea enough to carry it forward? And if we do, ideally, this is going to be more fully refined by a small group of people and be much more precise towards goals we want to meet or commit to. And then if we need to make it bigger or more specific, we can do that. We're just trying to get them directionally. Do we want to keep this idea in the plan? Is the wording satisfactory enough so we can move on, start to split off into small group time? Judy asks, would it be viable to ask people who have been certified to write and share their success? Does certification help me, and why? What do we think about that type of request? While it's not a metric, it is testimonials are always powerful. Any thoughts about the testimonial? I would like everyone to read 542. It's been significantly changed. So take a moment to read through that and let's see what we think.
Yeah, did that help? I made some tweaks. Maybe they helped. I hope they did.
So now it reads, define a series of metrics to enable improving certifications and training opportunities for maintainers and contributors, determining if they are improving the resulting software, determining if they're helping developers by increasing the employability, salary, e.g. via survey. Do this by engaging organizations to determine if they see value in certs, survey participants to ascertain their perceived and actual value in achieving applying those certs, and likelihood to achieve more, and ascertain if scorecards can reflect positive change based on maintainers completing certification. So much more comprehensive. What do we think about this altered wording? Vicky.
I am generally in favor of what we have right now. I do think the scorecards bit, while valuable, may need to be, while that's metrics, I feel that's a different sort of metrics and should be placed elsewhere in the document, perhaps. But otherwise, yeah, in favor. And to get to the Judy's question, yeah, testimonials, all for it, but I would imagine that falls more under outreach. But yeah, definitely would be a powerful thing to be able to hear directly from the people who are benefiting from the work.
Dave Rousseau, can we capture that in the meeting minutes so I don't lose that? We can circle back around. Any other feedback, positive or negative, on the change? So Vicky is in agreement, at least directionally. Any other thoughts?
I made a small tweak to capture Vicky's concern.
Thank you. Any other thoughts on 542? All right. 5.5 and 5.6, we carried on from the plan as original, and I just have notes, is this estimate sufficient? So when we get into our small groups and somebody focuses in on the certification topic, we want to make sure that we're providing as accurate a request for funding as possible. Let's talk about 5.7.
We have a question, Crow.
Oh,
Emily's
yes.
question.
I'm sorry, Emily, please.
And sorry, did we get any determination that those original numbers would be sufficient for the changes that we have made within this section to determine? Okay.
There's been no due diligence yet.
Okay.
But again, much like Judy, you're kind of looking into the future. That's going to be one of our next tasks, is to, based off of our agreed upon body of work, we're going to go in and start to get our pencils out and go through and make sure, is $600,000, do we feel that's sufficient for continuing the partnership office? And we'll need to kind of put some analysis into that before we make that proposal final.
If this is a number from the migration from the plan, and I think most of those numbers were, quick estimate of people times $1 per year figure. So there's a little bit more, but not much more behind this. The numbers, for obviously, some real analysis would be awesome.
Yeah.
Sorry, I think I might have answered my own question. I was just asking for a little bit more detail on the scholarships thing and understanding if it was aimed at underrepresented groups. And I see that there's a link to the Linux Foundation Diversity, Inclusion, Lift Scholarship thing. So yeah, okay.
Yeah, and that is one of our core tenets is we want to expand this training out to as many learners as possible, both people in their career, new students, people changing careers. We're looking at underrepresented communities. So we have a lot of lofty goals we want to try to hit. And this is an example. I think Judy gave us the link originally. Do we want to potentially partner with this scholarship initiative, augment it, or do we want to make our own? But this is kind of, I think, an example of something that exists today for 571. All right. Any additional thoughts on 571? Judy?
Hello. Actually, I put my camera on. Hello, everybody. I was looking at these figures, and it just seems really, really small. Like, if this university in the US, would that be one person or two people? Like, what kind of a difference are we trying to make here? So I like the idea of pairing with an existing scholarship program, because I think it would cost an enormous amount of money to set up our own scholarship program. I was hoping somebody, I did come across that link before. I was hoping somebody would have an insight on your side of the pond into how that actually operates, or David, a connection there that would be able to find out for us. Thank you.
Vicky.
So I agree that $250,000 isn't a lot, but we have to remember that this may not be to send someone to uni. This scholarship could also be for taking our training or additional trainings, and that would cover considerably more people. Also, is this still year one that we're looking at? Or is this year two?
Well, that's going to be a problem I'm going to push to the smaller group to define once we break up into smaller groups.
Yeah, I think that I think $250,000 would be a good start for year one, but I also think it's a stretch goal even for year one. Frankly, having any sort of scholarship, and if we set a number now for year one, we can then at least ask for the money, but we should ask for as much as possible, but assume we're going to get considerably less than that. And Judy, I don't know whether our training is not free or is free or not, but I do know that exactly, as Emily points out, not all of them are free. So if we have scholarships, people can apply to them and not necessarily take only our training.
Yeah. I will quickly note that the fundamentals course and the SKF course are free. Free to earn the certificate of completion. Obviously, universities, that's a different state. Maybe we need to be more specific about what we mean to as far as how to apply these scholarships. But I will say, if you plan to send folks to university, typically scholarships don't cover all of the costs. They're a cost reduction, not a free ride. There are exceptions, of course, but in vast number of cases, you're not actually covering all of the costs.
Emily.
My question was around, so I understand scholarships. Has anybody talked about whether or not it's beneficial to have some sort of fellowship program to promote research into understanding methods for retaining security education awareness by maintainers? So we're going through and we're doing a lot of these coursework under the assumption that folks are coming from a more traditional background, university curricula, high school, or something of that regard, where the maintainer ecosystem and the open source ecosystem has a much more anti-mainstream history behind it, and therefore has a more neurodiverse individuals participating. And therefore, when we talk about security concepts in that regard, they may require different learnings. And I haven't seen that at all in any of these discussions. I mean, we talked about it a little bit for trade schools, but that's not quite the same thing.
I think that's an excellent addition. We want to change the wording from scholarships to be scholarships, fellowships, or other means, something along those lines to account for that. And then we'll get more details as we continue to build out the plan. Is that agreeable or not? Or do you want a whole separate item specific to fellowships and research?
Vicky has a question, I think.
She does.
More of a +1 to diversifying the outpouring of money for educational purposes in that way. But while we're thinking about it, we have to consider, if people are going to go to, let me back up. There's giving scholarships, and then there's giving scholarships that matter. So what sort of education are you taking? And as we've discovered, a lot of universities aren't actually teaching this sort of stuff. So there's giving money to students, but how about giving money to professors or people who teach? And perhaps that's what Emily was talking about as far as the fellowship. But I do think it's the other side of the coin that we have to, if we're giving people money to learn, we have to make sure there's people there to teach them. And so that perhaps might be a note in this item, or it might be a separate item. Grants, yeah, endow a chair sort of thing, although I don't think we're going to have the millions for that, but.
Oh, an endowment.
I know, right?
Let me go get my smoking jacket and ascot. You think I don't have one, huh?
Oh, no, I know for sure that you probably have one.
Matt.
It would go with your fez is the thing.
What? Yeah, my fez is right there.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't know where we're tracking criteria if we even discussed it yet, but I'd like to see, building on increasing. I'd like to see people rewarded for actioning, making actionable some of these education practices. Like, for example, I think of SIG Store and the NYU people, saying I actually contributed to a project, OpenSSF or otherwise, that's security related. I improved security. I took the things I learned and put them into practice.
Agreed. Thank you. All right. Any additional thoughts before we move on to some voting and some other business? All right. Looking back,
is 5751 approved? Is that how I'm interpreting that?
Anybody else? We like 571? Happy. Emily nods. I think so. Vicky thumbs ups it. Dave thumbs upped it. Plus
Okay,
one
great.
from Sal and Judy and Eric. All right, so we need to make a decision. We have the plan. The bones of it are set now. And we need to decide operationally, how do we want to proceed going forward? Some of the other teams I interact with or work with, they have moved their work from Google Docs into GitHub, and then working through the PRs and issue process to make changes. So I would like a +1 or a thumbs up. Who thinks moving to an MD file in GitHub for the next iteration of the plan is our direction? I have a +1. I have one thumbs up, two thumbs up.
mean, if somebody has time, they could post the original text as a markdown file, and then replace that with the revised update text as a pull request, and then you could actually see the changes as a diff. Ooh.
Are you volunteering for that, David? I'm not.
I very carefully push the when I say someone, I never mean me.
I would volunteer to shove the finalized version into an MD file, but I'm not interested in the other work. But if someone else is, all right. So it looks like the group has approved the decision to move the final plan into GitHub in an MD file. So we'll start working on that next. So let's go back to the plan. And if you have the like table of contents view on the left-hand side, if you could go down to draft final proposal. Otherwise, if you could scroll down to page 11. Barring our debate today around 5.3 and below, David and I took all the items in the plan and organized them into the 3 streams that were originally in the plan: collecting and curating, expanding training, and then rewarding and incentivizing. And I aligned them as goals. And then if something was supplementary, for example, if you look at 1.1, we had the idea we're going to have a survey to find what's missing, which correlates to 4.1.1 above. So I put that as a detail or a milestone to achieve the 1.1 goal. So my proposal would be, actually, my question is, do we still agree with the 3 pillars of the plan? Collecting and curating the existing content, expanding the training, and then working on rewarding and incentivizing developers as kind of our 3 focus areas. Is that agreeable to the group? One, two, three, 4. Okay, so it seems like we still like the 3 pillars. If we like the 3 pillars, I'm curious if I have 3 individuals on the call that are interested in becoming section leaders to help facilitate focused, smaller group conversations around each one of those topic areas. So, for example, Dave Russo might want to be the leader of collect and curate content. So he would organize a call with folks and we would march. They would talk about in a small group about writing up things as a specific goal, providing an explanation of what that goal means, writing down the key steps and milestones we want to achieve. This is the detail work we've been alluding to the whole time, and then providing a time and resource estimate for each one of those goals. So do we have anyone brave enough or interested enough that wants to potentially head up one of these 3 smaller group conversations? And it's not that everyone is welcome to participate, but ideally we'll get some more velocity if we have a smaller group focused on tactically a smaller chunk of the plan as opposed to all of it. And then that group would come back and report back to everybody.
Yeah, for me, I think it would be, well, in my comfort zone, for example, 2.0, the expanding training. So I can do that one.
Thank you, Glenn. We have one volunteer.
I am good with your veiled suggestion that I work on the first one, the collect and curate content.
Yeah, and that's when I absolutely can and should be helping with as well, because I'm doing so much of this for the security slam already. Let's just coordinate.
All right. Is anyone interested in heading up the rewarding and incentivizing? This is a lot about the scholarships we've talked about, about building those relationships with, the partnership offices and such. This is where a lot of that work went into that section. Is anyone interested in leading section 3?
Well, if there isn't anyone more qualified, this absolutely goes under my banner of pay the maintainers. I really want to do this. So,
Okay. All right. And again, everyone is welcome to participate in every stream, but ideally we can, if we diverge a little bit, we can have some focused conversations about hammering out these specifics and then report back to the whole group. So Sal, I'll put you as the lead for section 3.
yeah, that sounds great. I definitely can't lead the content, but I can add to the content. This I can help with.
Yeah. Everybody's welcome.
I'll go. We need multiple people to on these things.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. But I would like to have one person that's going to commit to setting up some calls, facilitating some meetings, and then kind of being scope cop. We have this goal. For example, 1.1 existing materials from the OpenSSF and other groups will be collected and analyzed for gaps. So we need to define how are we going to do that, and that's the key steps and milestones. Mr. Russo.
Just so everyone can see, this is actually in the meeting notes document. Crow had a section to put the names and such. So we're adding people's names to that. Feel free to add your names to areas that you're interested in.
Mm-hmm. Awesome, Eric. Thank you. Let's do Glenn first and then Emily.
Yeah, I was thinking like, who can we contact, for example, to set up like this meeting Zoom capability for these sections? Because it would be beneficial if there's also, like the other ones public, maybe new people can find or see them.
And then that also would be helpful, like, for example, if Randall can't come to the section 1 call, but is still interested, he could watch the video potentially. So I will work with Jory from the foundation to get those Zoom calls set up, as long as somebody can help kind of facilitate a doodle or whatever mechanism to get the time hashed out.
Yeah, and I more broadly, if you've got a request to set, emailing to operations@openssf.org, that'll contact, several folks who will try to make things happen.
Emily.
So in the interest of previous discussions I've had with you, I would highly recommend creating 3 separate issues within the repo to kind of track this work, identify who the leads are and who are the folks that are interested in participating. I dropped this in the chat, but I also wanted to highlight it here in case folks didn't have the chat open. There may be issues that come up in the form of these discussions that really need the larger group to weigh in, and having that on the open issue is one mechanism to do that asynchronously.
I love that idea. And then if there is something that is contentious or you need help with or you're blocked on, that's something you would bring back to our weekly call here to say, hey, group 1 needs assistance or wants to share. We made this decision. Go look at this issue and get it. So what's the word I'm looking for? Technically, would it be easier for me to upload the whole plan as one file, or would it be easier to separate it as 3 files? Would we have less collisions that way if I uploaded 3 files for one for each section?
Please
or would it be like
separate.
one monolithic file? What was that, Glenn?
Yeah, please separate. But yeah.
That's easy enough. Any, let's see, what else were we looking at? So I see folks signing up to be parts of teams. Awesome. So look for an email from me. Oh, I'll do it. I'll do it right meow. Look for an email from me probably by the end of the day to the working group to point out where the plan got moved to in Git. And then I would encourage everyone to start going out and assembling some meeting times. And then, as David said, either the operations email, or I'll work directly with Jory to try to get us a Zoom call attached to whatever the final meetings are. And what our goal would be is to each section we've agreed on. These are the goals we've agreed on. So we're not going to be debating on removing things. We'll change wording slightly, but those are the goals we've agreed on. I would like to get things more in a standardized format, and then get those key steps, milestones, and estimates start to be refined in small groups. Do we have any questions about that or comments? Yeah, I think that's probably what we'll do next as our group, Judy. The first task for our next call would be to read out like when the small meeting times are, but then B, let's hammer out our mission statement, and that'll help inform David and I. Dave Rousseau and I will write kind of the market problem, kind of the overarching framing language for the whole plan. So that'll help. If we have a mission statement, that'll help us get that. Any additional thoughts or comments for today?
When do we share the status back to the primary working group that the SIG is operating under as a formal presentation?
We can do that in 2 weeks from yesterday, if we'd like. We had our SIG call yesterday, so it's every 2 weeks.
Is it necessary for us to do so? I think it would be beneficial, but then again,
I think it'd be useful. It's not required, but it would be useful. I think they're because it's a bigger audience, and there might be some additional. We might capture some additional interest in contributors.
And then the only other question I had is whether or not we intend to have a public comment period after we've provided this initial set of content for the larger group to provide that review.
That's a good question. So public comment, do you mean this group, the foundation, or the internet?
Probably closer to the foundation, but I don't believe that we should exclude the broader internet in that regard. In the past, when I've done public comment reviews for both CNCF and their tag security paper process, we've just made it available to the individuals that have participated or are on our mailing list. And if others from the broader ecosystem show up and comment, so much the better.
I agree. What does the group think about that, having public comment period? All right. So shall it be? And I reported to the TAC a couple weeks ago, just very basic status that the group was forming, and I estimated we would have our revision of the plan done sometime fourth quarter. So however quickly we can move to get these things refined, we'll set a formal, how long would we want that comment period to be? 2 weeks? Okay, so we'll have a formal 2-week comment period. And at that point, we would share it specifically to the TAC. We would need to have a little presentation. And then there's going to be a committee of the governing board that actually does the finance approval. So we'd show the TAC first and then formally present to the governing board. And we'd hopefully get all that done before the end of the year. All right. Thank you, everybody. I'm really excited. I think we've made some great progress. I'm excited to actually get in there and work on specifics now and have something that's going to be actionable that we can hopefully start making some content for in the very near future. Thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your days. We'll talk soon.